Technology. It consumes all that we do. In the past century, we have gone from entertainment radio to television to a speaker that can speak and perform on commands. We have gone from 0 to 300 in a matter of 100 years. With a new advanced society, people have become to rely on these new technologies in our everyday life. Rennie Gleason, who's a skeptical optimist, gave a TED Talk speaking on this topic. He shed some light on the constant use of our technology and how it is affecting society today. He opens the eyes of the audience, even getting them to laugh a few times, to show how important and obvious these actions play a role out in our everyday life. He even reminds us that we fall victim to these things every day too. This is his talk.
What I wanted to talk to you about today is two things. One, the rise of a culture of availability, and two, a request. So we're seeing a rise of this availability being driven by mobile device proliferation globally across all social strata. We're seeing, along with that proliferation of mobile devices, an expectation of availability. And with that comes the third point, which is obligation. An obligation to that availability. And the problem is we're still working through, from a societal standpoint, how we allow people to be available. There's a significant delta, in fact, between what we're willing to accept. Apologies to Hans Rosling. He said anything that's not using real stats is a lie. But the big delta there is how we deal with this from a public standpoint. So we've developed certain tactics and strategies to cover off. This first one's called the lean. And if you've ever been in the meeting where you play sort of meeting chicken, you're sitting there looking at the person, waiting for them to look away, and then quickly checking the device. Although you can see the gentleman up on the right is busting him. The stretch. Okay, the gentleman on the left is just saying, screw you, I'm going to check my device. But the guy here on the right, he's doing the stretch. It's that reach out, the physical contortion to get the device just below the tabletop. Or my favorite, the love you, mean it. Nothing says I love you like let me find somebody else I give a damn about. Or this one, coming to us from India, you can find this on YouTube, the gentleman who's recumbent on a motorcycle while text messaging, or what we call the sweet gravy, stop me before I kill again. That is actually the device. What this is doing is we find a direct collision. We find a direct collision between availability and what's possible through availability, and a fundamental human need, which we've been hearing about a lot, actually, which is the need to create shared narratives. We're very good at creating personal narratives, but it's the shared narratives that make us a culture. And when you're standing with someone and you're on your mobile device, effectively what you're saying to them is, you are not as important as literally almost anything that could come to me through this device. Look around you. There might be somebody on one right now participating in multi-dimensional engagement. Here, our reality right now is less interesting than the story we're going to tell about it later. This one I love. This poor kid, clearly a prop. Don't get me wrong, a willing prop. But the kiss that's being documented kind of looks like it sucks. This is the sound of one hand clapping. So as we lose the context of our identity, it becomes incredibly important that what you share becomes the context of shared narrative, becomes the context in which we live. The stories that we tell, what we push out, becomes who we are. People aren't simply projecting identity, they're creating it. And so that's the request that I have for everybody in this room. We are creating the technology that is going to create the new shared experience, which will create the new world. And so my request is, please, let's make technologies that make people more human and not less. Thank you.
8 years later, this problem seems to even be more obvious. Gleason reminds the audience and states to them that we are creating the technology of the new world, so please make technology that is more human, not less. Sadly, we haven't seemed to have won that battle yet. We're growing up in a generation where technology is introduced to us at a young age and becomes a part of our everyday life. Kids ranging from the age of 8 to 12 spend 6 hours of their day in front of a screen, whether that is a phone, television, or computer. American teenagers from 13 to 18 years old average about 9 hours a day of screen play. Even our adults are in front of a screen on an average 10 hours a day. Then we have our grandparents confused as to what is going on. Based off of these statistics alone, we can tell that there is a growing problem with a fixation on a screen rather than actual human interaction. Our teenage population is more concerned about their social media personality than their actual personality. It is all about the show and wanting our followers to think our life is so much greater than it actually is, rather than how we actually feel. The cause for this new social standard can be blamed on our constant social media presence. It all started with a website called Facebook. Facebook has jump-started and dominated our social media world for a decade now. Mark Zuckerberg founded Facebook while studying psychology at Harvard University. In February of 2005, the Facebook was launched, and within 24 hours, 1,200 Harvard students had signed up. By August 2005, the network became Facebook.com and began to spread worldwide by the end of September 2005. By July 2007, the website had reached 30 million users and has only continued to grow since. The scary part is, Facebook was just the start of it all. Since then, new social media platforms have formed like Instagram, Twitter, Vine, Tumblr, Reddit, and Snapchat, each of them becoming competitors of each other. Each generation has their own main social media platform. Adults use LinkedIn and Facebook to contact employers and friends. Teenagers use Instagram and Tumblr to speak their mind. And kids use Vine and Snapchat to record and listen to funny videos. It has become its own entertainment industry run by us, lay people of society. Our social media platforms have become their own industry. They constantly are trying to keep up with each other's technologies and even buying each other. In 2012, Facebook bought Instagram and is currently trying to buy Snapchat today. By 2015, Facebook had a market value of $234 billion. It has become an industry that runs our generation, and although it has amazing perks, it has a threat to our society in the future. It is nice to know what our friends are doing on the West Coast while living on the East Coast. It is cool to see when your best friend visits Paris and puts a picture on Instagram. But what is it all really worth without the human interaction? What happens to calling someone on the phone rather than checking their Snapchat to see if they put a story up with what they were doing? It seems silly that we do this, but we all know that we do. It has become second nature for us to act like this instead of having direct human interaction. So what do we do to change that in a constantly growing world? We recognize that there is a problem and react to it. The millennial generation is the one that grew up in this technology, so it is our job to make sure it doesn't continue to happen. Social media has affected normal activities like dating, having dinner with our friends and family, and even the scariest of them all, driving. Social media plays a huge role in our everyday activity, and that is okay. There are many positives of them, but it is the minimizing the negatives that needs to be addressed. Our social media platforms are what are driving the social life of our generation, just like Rennie Gleason warned us about. So as the newest generation, what are we going to do to stop it from happening to our own kids?